Welcome back. This is Billy with Coach Dooley's List. And once again, if you're enjoying these coaching videos, please like and subscribe to the YouTube page and also follow along on all of our social media platforms. Today, I am here at Hebron Christian School with head volleyball coach and athletic director, Taylor Davis. And Coach, I appreciate you taking the time, especially in the middle of your season, to meet with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to go to my first volleyball match of the season last week, and y'all are pretty solid. So I'm excited to see the rest of the season for y'all.
Yeah, we were very blessed. We ended up playing North Oconee, who have a lot of respect for Taylor Brooks over there. She was actually our JV coach a long time ago here, and then went to Florida for a little bit, and then came back and got situated at North Oconee. And I told the team after, I said, guys, you're gonna have a great postseason because you're playing for one of the best coaches in the state. And I have the utmost respect for Taylor.
That's awesome to hear. I live over there and have heard nothing but good things. And one of my former players actually is one of her assistant coaches, which is really cool. So we'll jump right into it. I always kind of ask everybody, tell us everybody, what your coaching journey's been like, how you ended up here at Hebron and everything you've been.
Yeah, so my coaching journey, so I grew up right down the road. I've been a Gwinnetian all my life. And so my dad was a admin coach and teacher over at GAC. And so I grew up right down the road. And so my journey got to watch what private Christian education looked like. Mm-hmm. And so growing up over there was some of the greats. And so I learned really early on the sport of volleyball. And so we had intramurals at our school. Cliff Shelton was the longtime baseball coach over there. He ran intramurals. And so as a ninth grader, I was kind of looking around, and I was the smart one. I ended up playing with the girls volleyball team as the only guy, and saw and fell in love with the sport. Not just because I was around a bunch of girls, but because this sport, you didn't, in a sense, have to have the athleticism, per se, with a bunch of the athletic guys on the other side of the net. So I'd play all my friends, and we would continue to win. And at ninth grade, I was like, this is something fun. So that continued to progress. When I graduated, I ended up going on a long-term mission trip to Hawaii. So, I had to serve for the Lord over there with YWAM. And so every single night, we'd play sand volleyball. And so that was what took place. So I got to really learn the game, especially the sand volleyball side. When I came back, I went to Georgia, where I played club volleyball. I went into my senior year, and I realized coaching is something I want to kind of get involved with. Mm-hmm. And so I got a call from, at the time, the head volleyball coach for Georgia, basically asked if I would be willing to do a grad assistant, even though I wasn't a graduate student. And so I said, absolutely. So we'd practice. I would go set the nets up at 5:30 in the morning, and I would do the AM practice, do my 21 hours, my fall season. And then in the afternoons, I coached at Athens Academy. And so I was under with Nikki Chester, who was the head coach at the time. And she's actually now back as the head coach. Okay. We played in the state championship that year against Blessed Trinity, lost in state finals, but really fell in love with the coaching piece my senior year at college.
No, I love that. And, you talk about one of the persons that I very highly respect is Cliff Shelton. Right when you said GAC, he was always good to me when I'm a Gwinnetian as well, and always good to me when I was in the baseball world. And so, coming up, doing a couple of different things, working through club, realizing, that you wanted to be a coach. What is it, you want your volleyball program here to be known for?
I think our big thing is just the investment in the next generation. So my big thing is that's what's really driven me to the private Christian education piece is not the idea that we get to impact kids, but we get to impact them from the very start. Right. So we get to be able to work with kids that are in the first, second, third grade to be able to entice and show them what this sport of volleyball looks like. So a lot of people see our program and they think, hey, they're really successful. Well, the success starts all the way back in our lower school. We work really, really, really hard to create leagues for our young kids, to be able to create clinics, to create summer camps, and those models to be able to invest in that age. We had a graduate student many years ago that went on to play and is very successful. Well, in fourth grade, I identified in a clinic and say, you could be really special in the sport if you stick with it. You could be a Division I player. And she was. And we had that relationship for 9 or 10 years of being able to work with her. And so that's the love of being able to watch my varsity kids now. But I watched them down when they were a B team 6th grade volleyball girl. And so having that relationship with your kids for 7 to 8 to 9 years is really special.
It's cool that you mentioned that too, and like you said, you see these kids, and everybody's on the same campus, right? Mm-hmm. All the young ones too. I was at Mount Pisgah. I was talking with the wrestling coach, and he was talking about the same thing. Like volleyball is kind of like wrestling in regard of yes, you see more of it on TV now, but I think we were talking right before we turned the camera on, it's not something everybody knows about.
That's
so
right.
like you said, parents might not know as much about volleyball as they do about baseball because it's just not something you grow up watching on a daily basis. So that's really cool too, that you can see those kids and have 6, 7, 8 years. So how many years have you been here?
It's my 15th year at Hebron.
15th.
So
Gotcha.
13th year as the AD and also 13th year as the head volleyball coach.
That's awesome being able to develop it that way. And so, you have these kids that you've known since first, second, third grade, and they come up and you always have stories. Sometimes they're on the court, more times than not, they're off the court. But what's one of your favorite coaching stories from over the years?
So we played in the state championship our first year in 2014. So I was, I think, the second year as the volleyball coach. We lost the year before against Holy Innocents. Taylor Nolans was an incredible coach, did a great job. But we returned everyone that next year. And so I was young and dumb, and I spent a lot of energy kind of emphasizing the importance of, hey, we're going to do our side of the net very, very well, but we're also going to learn a little bit about the opponents. We're going to learn something about each one of those players. So I gave the task for each one of our kids to do their homework on the other kid on the other side of the net. And so as we're doing our film review, I'm getting feedback from some of these kids, and it was wild. I said, whoa, I was more thinking about what they were doing from the X's and O's, not so much everything else. So fast forward, we're playing Savannah Christian in the state championship. They had an outside hitter that was really, really special. And our right side hitter was a solid player. Wasn't the greatest athlete. Well, this player comes front row for Savannah Christian, and our right side is setting up the block. And before the point, she looked at her and says, hey, I know you're about to hit this quick to the outside in this rotation. And she looks at her and says, yeah? What else do you know about me? She goes, I know that your favorite food's steak. I know you drive 50 minutes to the school and your favorite color's blue. She looked at her like, what is going on? She hit the antenna the next 3 hits. Her mind was totally off. We ended up beating them to win the first state championship, and I was dying. Not that I want to coach that way, but I was like, what an awesome way to be able to really win in all categories of life.
That's phenomenal. I won't mention the schools, but I talked to a baseball coach a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the place that he went. And as a softball coach, you love those moments of just the battling. You have the fans do it and that kind of stuff. And that reminded me of a baseball coach that said that their fans would learn every baseball player. They would learn their girlfriend, and they said they were always respectable about it, which I love to hear. But when somebody starts talking about your sister, and I don't mean it a bad way, but just like, hey, what's Susie doing today? And you're like, who is that? Right. And you're like, and they're just waving at you like that. You're now unfocused on what the task at hand is.
That's right. That's right.
That's really, really cool. And especially back, you said that was 2014?
That's right. Oh,
and that's before you could find everything.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of research that she put in.
Look, and you also got to be happy about the fact that you gave them a task and they went and accomplished it.
That's exactly it.
That's really cool. So, and all those, and that might be something you tell, other coaches to do, to prep for a match. But what if somebody, one of your former players, assistant coach, or somebody came to you and said, Coach Davis, I want to be a head coach one day. What piece of advice would you give them?
I'd say the big thing is just learning all phases and learning how to do them well. I think the more I've been a head coach, I realize the importance of all phases off the court. You got to be willing. I actually had this conversation yesterday with a parent over at Prince Avenue. We had our 3rd and 4th grade little championship, but we were talking about just the expectations of a head coach. And I think a lot of people, they underestimate, in a sense, what that looks like. It is so much time and energy, and it's the weeds of all things. And so you got to love all the pieces, and then the fun comes on the court or the field, but you can't quite find your value in that piece. You got to really love the details and the weeds and be able to appreciate all phases of it and be able to be available to be given of your time, which is a challenge. It's a really big challenge.
No, for sure. And especially yesterday being National Coaches Day. And I love seeing all the posts and even the ones acknowledging that, look, coaches aren't perfect. Give them some grace, in all the things that they do. Because when you talk about, for those that don't know what Coach is talking about with the weeds, I mean, that is Kids deal with family things. They show up to a match and they're not focused. You have your booster club to deal with. You have to order things. You get a call from a teacher says, Johnny or Susie or whoever wasn't paying attention in class today. And there's so much more than just this side of the net and that side of the net and trying to prep for things. And so, no, I'm glad you said that too. That's a good piece of advice. And, so talking about being in the weeds and doing all the things, one of the big ideas for doing the interviews is to bring kind of awareness to the Coach Dooley's List website, just trying to connect vendors with coaches. And so I always ask, who's a vendor that you love to work with that you'd shout out to another coach?
So we are kind of an exclusive school with BSN Sports. So Don Price has been a vendor that we've been working with I'd say a little over a decade, and he lives right around the corner, so that availability helps our coaches. But we've had a great relationship with him, and so he's been able to provide, I think, a really good product. We're kind of a Nike exclusive school too, so all those pieces kind of align for kind of a first-class showing program.
No, it's awesome, and BSN gets shouted at a lot, and they're everywhere. So no,
Yes,
that's good. Well, Coach, listen. You got region starting today, and then state, and then hopefully you're playing. My plan is to come to Lake Point at the end after last week. Even my kid said he wanted to miss school, and we may be in Lake Point, so I'm hoping I will get to see you there. And like I said, just thank you and best of luck the rest of the season.
There's a lot of good volleyball coming up.
Yes, I'm gonna watch some for sure. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.